Hello, 10A, and I hope that you are very well. This morning, this afternoon, whatever time it is, I apologise about my hair. I wanted to introduce you to your individual oral presentation. As we'll be doing our written description next week, we can start moving on to the next assessment, which is 001 Assessment Event 2 Individual Oral Presentation. So let's go through the information together to start off with, and I will get this to you so that you are aware of everything that you are required to do. So you are required to prepare and deliver a 5-minute individual oral presentation, followed by a 3 to 5 minute question and answer session. So you need to do two things. The 5-minute presentation, which is you speaking for those 5 minutes. If you decide to use a video at all, that doesn't count toward the 5 minutes. The 5 minutes need to be you speaking for that amount of time. Then there will be a 3 to 5 minute question and answer time. So your audience, being your classmate, are going to ask you questions about your presentation and you need to respond to those. All of the presentations will be video recorded. So if you are nervous about being recorded on video, please let me know and I can give you some helpful techniques to improve your skills about that. So task in level 1, unit 5, living things, have prepared us for this. So this is when we've been talking in both 002 and 001. We've been talking about living things, in particular endangered animals. So this is actually linked to two different assessment events, which I've discussed with you previously. Number 1, your reading and writing skills. So that's when we looked at writing a description that you're going to be doing next week. So we have so far done created our data sheet, completed our research and created a plan, and then you're going to go in and do your actual description the week after next, or next week, we'll find out. So during that time, you would have needed to do a fact sheet and also create a reference list. Now, the reference list I'll help you complete. You're going to use your research sheet that you did to then create the reference sheet and then bring these to the class to write a description. So we've pretty much got all of that covered. The second thing it's connected to is your assessment event for Project 1, which is the PowerPoint or the slideshow that you're going to be doing with Mayuri in your computing class. So for this presentation, you are required to do a PPT or a PowerPoint. So the focus of this assessment is on how well you've adapted a written task into an oral task and your delivery of a presentation. Also, the ability to handle questions and answer them in an appropriate manner. So you're required to present in front of the whole class, so everyone's going to be watching you, and the class members are required to participate, and I'll show you that sheet in just a moment. So class members are required to conduct a peer review by using the individual oral presentation or the peer assessment sheet provided. These should be used to assist with the preparation of suitable questions for the question and answer session. The peer assessment sheets should be collected by the teacher at the end of each presentation. So for each of your classmates, you are individually going to have to do a peer assessment sheet, and that's going to be collated and that will go toward your course work. So if you don't do it, it will be subtracted from your overall mark. So let's have a look at the assessment criteria. So the individual oral presentation for assessment 2, I'll grade you according to the assessment criteria. The peer assessment, that'll actually be part of your overall assessment and the notes on the assessment, okay? So this is the actual assessment sheet that you're going to be using. And when you're making your own presentation, you can have a look at this as a bit of a tick sheet to see how well you're actually going to go in your assessment. So it does two things. Number 1, you're going to be assessing or looking at your classmate and how they present, but also it's good for your preparation. So the aim of the presentation is clear. We know what animal they're going to talk about, and we know the purpose of the presentation. Research was done and there was enough information on the topic. So when you're actually giving your presentation, you can provide statistics, pictures, detailed information about your endangered animal. That it was organised clearly, okay? That you clearly have a beginning, a middle and an end, and we'll look at the slides shortly, but each of the slides only have a certain amount of information, and that the speaker is not reading off the slide but knows the information, which shows that the speaker has an understanding of the topic. So being able to present without having to read off anything means that the presenter actually knows the information. The presentation was loud enough so we can actually hear everybody speaking. Content of the presentation was interesting. So this is a nice easy one that we can do using different resources. Have we used pictures? Have we used sounds? Have we used videos? Have we used our body language to engage our audience? Have we used rhetorical questions? There's so many things you can do to make a presentation interesting. The speaker made eye contact with the audience. So making sure, again, you're just not reading off that, or you're not just reading off a piece of paper. Pronunciation was clear, so you're able to, in particular, that vocabulary that you might be unfamiliar with, that you can actually express and pronounce it correctly. Grammar and vocabulary were adequate. You used appropriate vocabulary. In this case, you're going to be talking about the species. You're going to use some scientific words, so that's going to show that you've got the correct vocabulary. Also that you've got signposting phrases and transitional words. Visual aids were used appropriately. Again, have they used some pictures? Have they only used words? Have they given a handout? There's lots of different things that we can use in terms of visual aids, but they are quite important, and we'll look at those in some example presentations later. The speaker was able to develop a follow-up discussion. So that means they're going, thank you very much for watching my presentation. Do you have any questions? If no one has any questions, that's an opportunity for you to then speak to the audience and say, well, what do you think? How should we help these endangered animals? Or should we help these endangered animals? Or would you donate to this particular animal? Why or why not? So think about how you can develop that. At the end, when you are actually being a peer and you're assessing your classmate who's presenting, when you're listening to the presentation, think about the questions as you're listening. If there's anything when the person is talking about how big it is, maybe you're thinking, oh, I wonder how much it weighs. If they talk about it lives in Africa, you might say, I wonder where in Africa. So that would be a question. Question 1, how much do they weigh? Question 2, where in Africa do they live? So you can prepare some questions for that Q&A session. Remember that we're working in a class and it is about teamwork, so we need to work closely with one another, and doing this part, making sure that there's some questions, is actually going to help with your classmates' overall score. So it's not just about them, it's about you, and if we all sort of contribute together, it's going to work out well. So you're going to be doing one of these for each of your classmates, but as I said, it's a really good tip sheet to make sure that you are actually creating a really strong presentation. And this is teachers, so this is how I'm going to be assessing you. Task achievement is the overall achievement. So I do this one at the very end after I've completed these other ones. So content and research. I see how much information you know about your animal, not just simplified content. If you just say, if you're going to talk about a cat, for instance, this is a cat, it has 2 ears, it has 2 eyes, it's small in size and it has 4 legs, it meows and it has a tail. I would only give you maybe a 1 or a 2 for that. If you go into detail, for instance, the cat is part of the mammalian family, but it falls into the feline subspecies. There are thousands of different subspecies of cat. They originate in Asia, however, have gone throughout the world. They originated, there are stories about cats in ancient Egypt times, where it was actually considered a mythological creature, and a creature that had different strength and wealth, and was quite a powerful animal in the world of mythology. I can see this person's done a lot of research and really understands and knows the content of their presentation. Someone that did that probably be getting up to a 4 or a 5. Organisation. Is there a clear introduction, clear paragraphs, and a clear end? The same as if you're writing an essay or a description, or that you have a clear introduction. My first paragraph or my first PowerPoint presentation sheet is going to talk about this, then this, then this, then this. If you start talking about what they look like, then talk about what they eat, and then go back to talking about what they look like, I know that it's not organised very well, and so if it was going to be that, it might be 2, 1, or even a 0. Delivery falls into how you're presenting. So it's your verbal communication, but also your body language. So how you've actually delivered it. Are you making eye contact with the audience? Are you reading the audience? Are you using humor to make them engaged? Are you using shocking piece of information to make it engaged? Can I actually hear what you're saying? Are you speaking too slowly or too quickly? Are you confident with your information? So can I see that you've practiced and practiced and practiced to make sure that you're really confident in when you're speaking? Language falls into grammar, sentence structure, and vocabulary, okay? So making sure that you're able to pronounce different vocabulary in the right way and that you use different vocabulary across the board. Question and answer section, again, you can even get a 5 for this. So when you're getting questions from your audience, are you answering them fully? If you don't know what the answer is, are you saying, thank you for your question, I will look into that? If there are no questions, have you had the initiative to ask questions of the audience so you can start a conversation with them? Okay, so question and answer. Then once you've done all of that, I'm going to look at, okay, what is generally where they go. If you've got lots and lots of 4s, you're probably going to get a 4 or 5. If you've got lots and lots of 3s, you're probably going to get a 3. If you're falling down here, but you've got mostly 2s, a few 1s, you'll get a 2. Okay, so this is the task achievement is the overall achievement. So it's kind of like a bonus point. You can see that here it gives a marking scale, but more importantly is down here. So here you can actually see or get an estimate of what your overall mark is going to be. If, for instance, I was looking at content and research, if I say content is adequate, highly interesting, extended and well developed, always relevant, and evidence of research, you're going to get a nice number 5. However, if I can see that you've missed out a lot of information, you've included information that's not relevant, then you're going to be getting a 1 or even a 2, okay? Delivery, highly competent delivery skills, so volume, eye contact, use of aids, so visual aids, that sort of thing. You're going to get a nice 5. Less than adequate in some areas, so maybe you're speaking really, really quietly, or maybe you're reading off a sheet and you're going to fall into 2 or 1 for that. So this sheet is really important across all of the GAC assessments. The reason being that you can actually go through here and immediately identify where you're going to score and where you need to improve. If there's things that you don't understand about this sheet, please come and ask me and I'm happy to give you some hints. We really want you to get the best mark possible and develop the most skills possible. So I'm not trying to be mean. I want to give everybody 5. Trust me, I would love to give everybody 5, but I will not give it to you unless you deserve it. So if you want to say, teacher, you know, I think I'm, you know, adequate, but I want to get up to very good. What can I do? What sort of content do I need in my presentation to get up to that next level? Okay. So I would highly recommend that you read through all of this information and get comfortable with everything. Oh, listening skills test, how exciting. Okay. Now, sorry, I'm just going to pick up the next document that I wanted you to look at. Here we go. All right, so if you go over to here we go. So if we go back to living things, so unit 5, it tells you about the speaking presentation and individual oral presentation. So in this section, you're going to prepare. We've done a lot of preparation already. For instance, it tells you about endangered animals. You already have your endangered animal and you've already done a lot of research, which is fantastic. So we don't need to choose the topic. We do need to remember how to present it though. There's always an introduction, a body, including the main parts, and the conclusion. What I want you to do is, as we did with your description, and keeping in mind that you're going to be talking for 5 minutes, so it's going to be a lot longer than your actual description. I want you to have a think about, with your information, what you should do in your introduction. Again, this is not a description, it's a presentation, so there's a different way to present. Your body, so what main points you're going to do, and your conclusion. So I want you to complete that for me in this class today. Have a think about what you're going to do, just a general idea. While you're there, have a think about different resources that you could use. For instance, if I was going to do about the beluga whale, I might want to put a short video of them breaching through the water and smashing down. It's really beautiful and really engaging. And that might be a fun way to actually start my presentation, or a really nice way to end my presentation. Okay. We won't do that right now. The next thing that I'd like to do, so you're going to work on that. I'm going to, we're going to analyze, have a look at one video and just have a, analyze it a little bit to see what you think you could do for yours. Okay. And then in the next class, I'll give you some feedback on your initial structure, and then we're going to look at our plan. So let me share my screen again, and we're going to go across to a TED Talk. Okay. This is just a really short TED Talk, 3 minutes and 11 seconds. What I would like you to do, is to open, get a new piece of paper and a pen, and I would like you to actually write down what you think are the good things about this presentation, because it's going to go toward your homework, your other part of homework for this class. Okay, so get our pen and paper out, and I want you to write down the things that you think are good about this presentation.
A few years ago, I felt like I was stuck in a rut. So I decided to follow in the footsteps of the great American philosopher, Morgan Spurlock, and try something new for 30 days. The idea is actually pretty simple. Think about something you've always wanted to add to your life and try it for the next 30 days. It turns out 30 days is just about the right amount of time to add a new habit or subtract a habit, like watching the news, from your life. There's a few things that I learned while doing these 30-day challenges. The first was, instead of the months flying by forgotten, the time was much more memorable. This was part of a challenge I did to take a picture every day for a month, and I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing that day. I also noticed that as I started to do more and harder 30-day challenges, my self-confidence grew. I went from desk-dwelling computer nerd to the kind of guy who bikes to work for fun. Even last year, I ended up hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. I would never have been that adventurous before I started my 30-day challenges. I also figured out that if you really want something badly enough, you can do anything for 30 days. Have you ever wanted to write a novel? Every November, tens of thousands of people try to write their own 50,000-word novel from scratch in 30 days. It turns out, all you have to do is write 1,667 words a day for a month. So I did. By the way, the secret is not to go to sleep until you've written your words for the day. You might be sleep deprived, but you'll finish your novel. Now, is my book the next great American novel? No, I wrote it in a month. It's awful. But for the rest of my life, if I meet John Hodgman at a TED party, I don't have to say, I'm a computer scientist. No, if I want to, I can say, I'm a novelist. So here's one last thing I'd like to mention. I learned that when I made small, sustainable changes, things I could keep doing, they were more likely to stick. There's nothing wrong with big, crazy challenges. In fact, they're a ton of fun, but they're less likely to stick. When I gave up sugar for 30 days, day 31 looked like this. So here's my question to you. What are you waiting for? I guarantee you the next 30 days are going to pass whether you like it or not. So why not think about something you have always wanted to try and give it a shot for the next 30 days? Thanks.
Okay, so I want to have a look at what you've written. So if everyone just make sure that have a look, I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to write down any other notes that you have, any other things that you thought were good, and then we're going to go through the presentation together. And then we're going to go through the presentation together and go through some things that really make it a strong presentation and a strong TED Talk. So I'll give you 2 minutes and then we'll carry on. more minute. Just have a look. Have a look at what other people have written down. Do you agree or disagree? So let's go through it just quickly again.
A few years ago.
So he's walked out, and how do you look at his body language? What sort of words do you think when you look at him? He looks very confident. He's also really open. So he's got his arms stretched out like this, which means I'm bringing you into my conversation. I'm having a chat with you. If you come into the presentation like this, people aren't going to feel engaged. They're not going to be wanting to speak to you. His face is quite light and quite bright. And he's speaking nice and loudly through his chest. If you look down at what he's saying, a few years ago, I felt like I was stuck in a rut. So stuck in a rut means like I'm doing the same thing over and over again, which, to be honest, with the pandemic at the moment, I feel very much the same. So I'm going, oh, I know how you feel. So he's using an anecdote or a little story related to him to then relate with the audience to bring them in. Again, the audience is going, oh, I felt like that before. Let me listen to you. Okay. So using an anecdote is a really good way to bring people in.
I felt like I was stuck in a rut. So I decided to follow in the footsteps of the great American philosopher, Morgan Spurlock.
Okay, you guys might not be familiar with this guy. He is a documentarian, so he makes documentaries, but he's actually very funny. Super Size Me, he actually spent 30 days eating McDonald's, only McDonald's for 30 days. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, only McDonald's, just to see what would happen to his body. It wasn't good. Then he went to jail for 30 days just to see what that would be like. So he's a documentary. Now, the reason that I stopped here is that it's actually something that's funny. So it's made the audience laugh. If you can make your audience laugh or gasp or scream, it's going to make a difference. It will engage them more in the presentation. So that's number one, is he's made them laugh. Again, he's engaging them. He's getting the audience interested in the conversation, in the talk. The second thing is this is one of the few PPT slides he's used. Now with PPTs, you don't need to use 1,800 PPTs or one PPT per word. He's used literally just 2 pictures, and it's just to add something to the conversation. He's not reading off it. There's no writing on it. There's no dot points on it. It's literally an addition to give some focus and to give some humor.
And try something new for 30 days. The idea is actually pretty simple. Think about something you've always wanted to add to your life and try it for the next 30 days. I meet John Hodgman at a TED party, computer nerd, to much more memorable. This was part of a challenge.
So here he's again saying, this made this good for me, so it might make it good for you as well. Further
challenges. The first was, instead of the months, fly about the right amount of time to add a new habit. Think about something you've always wanted to add to your life and try it for the next 30 days. It turns out 30 days is just about the right amount of time to add a new habit or subtract a habit, like watch.
Again, here is another PPT slide that it's not written, he's not reading off it, he knows his information, but it helps focus and draw the attention of the audience. So when you're doing your PPT, not a lot of information, make it really nice and simple for them to read as well.
Watching the news from your life. There's a few things that I learned while doing these 30-day challenges. The first was, instead of the months flying by forgotten, the time was much more memorable.
Here we're looking at delivery. So when he's going, the time was much more memorable, he's using a couple of things. One, he's using alliteration. Alliteration is when you use the same letter or the same sound at the beginning of your words, and it just engages the ear. It makes the person want to actually hear you. The other thing is he's got a lot of emotion in his voice. It makes it much more memorable. So you can see how he's using his body language and his vocals to make that expression and make that emotion. So if you're talking about how awful it is that the wolves are dying, you don't want to go, and then the wolves will all disappear and there will not be any more wolves at all. Would be the wrong expression. Or, so then all the wolves are going to die and then we're not going to have any more wolves and it's going to be really sad. Again, it doesn't really tell the story. So you need to think, am I putting the right emotion? Am I writing the right tone and the right inflection into what I'm saying? So much more memorable, or the wolves are going to die unless you do something. Okay, so it's more of a call to action.
This was part of a challenge I did to take a picture every day for a month. And I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing that day. I also noticed that as I started to do more and harder 30-day challenges, my self-confidence grew. I went from desk-dwelling computer nerd to the kind of guy who bikes to work.
So here he's got two separate slides that have looked at two separate things. So before and after. And with your endangered species, you could certainly do the same thing, seeing all of the beautiful animals before and all of them after, when maybe there's deforestation, which is causing the problem. Okay.
Ton of fun, but they're less likely to stick. When I gave up sugar for 30 days,
you'll notice just moments ago, he also had a nice pause. So when you're trying to really make a point, don't straight into your next. You want to have a nice pause for the audience to take that little piece of information in. Okay, so remember, pauses are really important when you're delivering a speech. When he's talking as well, he doesn't, when I gave up sugar for 30 days and it was terrible, but then after 30 days I had all the sugar and now I really like sugar and stuff. That's not going to help because he's speaking far too quickly. So you'll notice, hopefully with me as well, that there's a certain pace. If I'm talking to my family or friends, I'm never speaking this slowly. But when I'm speaking and doing a presentation for you, or if I was doing it in my last job, I would be slowing down my speaking so that everybody understands and is engaged.
Day 31 looked like this.
Okay, and here, instead of using words, he's used a picture. Day 31 looked like this, and it means it's also funny. So again, it's keeping the audience engaged. Okay, so nice and simple. So what I'm going to get you guys to do is two things. So as I said, please come up with a general idea of what you think how you're going to present about your animal. Try and make it interesting. What should come first, second, third, fourth, and so on? What sort of resources would you like to do? Again, this is just a really basic one. We're going to go into a more detailed plan and sort out your PowerPoints in the future. But for today, that's one thing that I want you to do. The other thing that I'd like you to do is only for an English presentation, so you can look up TED Talks, you can go on YouTube, whatever you wish. I want you to research one presentation that you think is good. Okay, so just one presentation that you think is good. I want you to write your name, the name of the presenter, the topic of the presentation, and give me the website as well, just so I can have a look and see, what interests you. Presentation can be on anything. If we want it to be about Grand Theft Auto, someone was maybe presenting about the latest gun available in it, that's fine. If it's a presentation about jewelry, or if it's a presentation about global warming or serial killers, I don't mind. It can be on anything. But find a presentation and watch it, and I want you to identify the part of the presentation, why you thought it was good or interesting, and whether they used any resources, what resources they used, and why you think they're good. Okay, so that's all for today. You'll see on the 10A class planner when this is actually due. It'll be due before the next class that we have, and we're going to continue looking on to what makes a good presentation, and we'll start planning a little bit more for your assessment. As usual, any questions, please give me a WeChat. If you've got questions related directly to the class, use the group WeChat so that I can directly comment, because other people probably have a very similar question to yourself. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for the teacher that sat in with you, and I'll see you in the next class.